Thank everyone for coming. There's a little bit of like Christmas where people are taking photographs of family and that sort of thing. So thanks for waiting. This panel that I've put together here is all about nailing the interview. So I'm your moderator today. My name is Lance LaForte. I've been in recruiting and HR in creative industries for, I don't know, about 20 years or something like that. In video games, film, VFX, animation, probably missing advertising. Anything creative, I really love being around you guys. It's a great industry. So on the panel today, we've got Darren Palma, there, waving. He's a recruiter at Top Hat. He's also worked at Ubisoft and other studios in the city. Alicia Zagerman on the far end. Alicia is talent acquisition manager at Secret Location, which is E1's VR development division. Did I get that right? Mike Valican, who some of you may know, StarTunes Animation Talent Contest recently, founder of Canadian Animation Resources, man about town, around creative stuff. Jefferson Allen from Mercury Filmworks, he's the VP of Studio Operations in Ottawa. And also Robert Anderson down here, producer at Tangent Animation, and has been in, most of these folks on this end have been in the animation business for quite some time. And well, my fuss would call them fogies, that's on him, not me. Okay, brief intros, if I could. Mr. Anderson, possibly give us a little bit about recruiting specific, what you either interact with at Tangent Animation, and some of the things you like to do when interviewing people, if there's any special questions you ask. Check, check, check.
Well, as a contract producer, I work at various studios, currently Tangent Animation, on Next Gen, which is on the CASO board. My involvement with the recruiting process on that particular film would be, we don't have a recruiting department on this TV studio, so it's really up to myself and the other producers that's on the project to sort of source out individuals to work on the project. Other studios have been recruiting personnel professionals that I would be working in tandem with. Currently, it's just myself and
yeah, over to Mike. Mike, specifically with StarTunes, because that was a unique project here in the city. You know, could you give us some of the reflections when you're looking to hire that crew that you had in there? What are some things that you distinctly were looking for?
Okay, so I also run a very small little production company of my own as well, called Go Lucky, and we focus primarily on IP development. And also at StarTunes, I've been in the hiring seat an awful lot over the course of my career. StarTunes was a very unique situation in that we were looking for people who were able to execute on their ideas on their own. One-stop shop kind of creators. Now the technology's there, you've got it at home. StarTunes was specifically a character development outreach program. So that was where present a character, be able to animate, or bring a friend in to be able to animate it. But that's where we see these kind of like, I guess the term these days is super generalists. People who can kind of do everything for themselves. And it's not too big a stretch for most of you coming out of school right now to be able to handle all these things. Me personally, portfolio reviews, I mean, there's your basics in terms of we want to see some common ground, want to see what your expertise is, there's like the drawing itself, is it real? But make sure you've got a link to send that's really straightforward and simple. Don't overblow a website. Just make sure we can see your stuff quickly. We know that your name is on everything. Even the title and how you name your resume when you send it in, put your name in that so that we don't go losing it on our desktop and we convince the other 20, 30, 40, 400 resumes we've got. Quick, easy to access online presence, and in the interview itself, be yourself, be polite, don't bring a parent. Trust me on that one. Don't bring a parent.
I've seen that a few times.
Yeah, it happens. But like, just be clean, be polite, make eye contact, and I personally want to see your personal life. I want to see what you do when you're not trying to make me happy, because that's what I look for in creatives. And we can touch on that again a little bit. I'm going to pass this on before I go too far.
Great. Jefferson, give us an idea, again, from your perspective and some of the things when you're doing interviews and what do you look for?
First and foremost, what I love is no matter how the technology continues to advance and continues to get better, art skills still trump everything. So many people show, proficiency in a program, and that's great. We do want to see that, but kind of speaking to what you said, we want to see your own stuff. What you're drawing, what inspires you. See your own style. And to that point, I would say if you're finding it hard getting in the industry, draw. When you think you've done enough, do some more. Because that is, for us when we're looking at, we'll do tests, we'll look at portfolios, but we're really trying to get a sense for what your skill set is, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. The other thing, again, you covered a lot. In a very short period of time, but very effectively.
I got no time to waste.
Be personable. Don't be a jerk. Because you're being added to an animation team. It takes a team of people to make something great. It's never really because of one person. So come in with some humility. Understand that you're going to have to learn.
But be yourself, because if you are a jerk, I need to figure that out fast. Because I don't want you on my team.
Yeah, exactly.
Darren, I think, I'm not sure if Alicia has a CHRP, but you've got a Human Resources designation, which is a necessarily formal look at HR and recruiting. I'm just curious, is there, we've talked about some of the nitty-gritty, but from your perspective, you've worked at Top Hat now currently as a recruiter, which is very much, I believe, a tech startup, but you've worked at Ubisoft and other places. Is there something you look at, or you and I have discussed things like Myers-Briggs personality profiling and that sort of thing, like again, a very formal approach. Do you think that makes a significant difference?
It's interesting because I've always tried to find a balance between that HR science and that subjectivity that goes into something like the creative industry. As much as I hate to say it, there is a lot of subjectivity, but so generally going to kind of what I look for, I'm very much a relationship builder, and I usually focus more on the top of the funnel of recruiting. So I'm building pipelines, I'm just talking to people constantly, and the number one thing I always say, it's really corny, but I do look for passion in what you do, and really hone in on what you want to do in whether it be games or animation. Because there's so many different little pockets of niches within games and animation. You can go more stylized, you can go more realistic. So generally when I get an applicant that's more of a generalist, that's great that you know all of this stuff, but it doesn't really help me if, let's say I'm working on a realistic project and you're showing me only stylized stuff. So the personality test plays a lot into the passion as well too. It tells me if you're driven for certain aspects of, in your life, whatnot. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Right, excellent. And Alicia, give us your perspective as well. Some of the things that you specifically, beyond resume, maybe look for in a candidate when you're doing recruiting.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say similar to what Darren said, Secret Location, we've been around for about 10 years. We were acquired by Entertainment One 2 years ago. But to keep that small company feel that has been at SL since the start is something that's really, really important to us. So looking at passion, drive to learn. If you're not going to stick in your role, how could we keep you within our company and support you to move around? Whether you want to start off as an animator and then realize you want to get more into development on the tech side. We've had that happen as well. Or go from Unity working in Unreal, different things like that. So I think just for us, passion and drive to learn is really, really important. And you can teach skills, I think, easier than some of those innate things in people.
Great, okay. So next question is around culture. Every place seems to have its own distinct studio culture or corporate culture. When you are looking at people coming into the organization, are you looking primarily just at that individual's skills and what they bring to the table, or, you know, I think Jefferson mentioned the team aspect is, and Mike did as well, the aspect of how are they going to fit in the team. How do you weight those? Are they sort of 50-50? Are they 1-for-1? Jefferson, you want to take that?
One thing I will say is so when if you're in the industry or you're coming out of school, what you really want to do is you have your own goals. Again, you know what you want, know where you want to be, you know, not just out of the gates, but where you want to end up. Then the key is start looking for studios that do that and do that well. You know, if you want to become a really good storyboard artist, you don't go to a studio that doesn't do boards, right? You got to see. It's not just about a job. You've got to align yourself with a company that has the same goals, same aspirations that you do. Because if you don't, well, you're not going to be happy, and nor are they. And so I think, you know, one of the things I've been seeing, you know, what I've been trying to do at Mercury, but I think other companies are doing this, and doing this more, is, you know, I want to be very honest about who we are, what we aspire to be, and what we don't want to be. Because I feel if I do that, then I'm going to attract like-minded people. Because I think, you know, I've been at Mercury for 19 years. That long. Yeah. Well, I did, at the beginning. You know, and in that period of time, I saw people come on that had very different goals. And they didn't end up happy, nor did we. And so I think, you know, it's not just about getting a job. It's about finding a company that you can not just start your career, but grow it.
Anybody else want to comment on what Alicia?
Yeah, I agree completely. One of the questions that we always ask people is, why do you want to work at Secret Location? And that tells us a lot. Like, why? Like, why do you love VR? Do you love, like, emerging tech? Like, do you love, I guess, the type of people that you think we are? Like, what is it about us? Like, to make sure that it's not just people who, you know, want a job at somewhere where they think that they might enjoy it. So yeah, I think that's really important. And then to touch on what you were asking about earlier, just culturally, as you can probably tell by sitting here, it's still trying to get more women in tech. So that's really, really important for me specifically at Secret Location, is trying to make it 50-50. And not just about that, just to like hit numbers on bring more women in tech, but it's diverse minds, diverse thinking leads to creating, you know, better products and things. So really looking at diversity and inclusion is really important at Secret Location, for sure.
Robert?
I just like that. I mean, culture is something that's really important to everybody. In the 30 some odd years I've worked in animation, a little over 20 studios I've worked for. Out of that, maybe 10 of them I've been involved in helping to hire staff for specific projects. None of them had the exact same culture, which I think was really important for me to being involved in what is the studio, what is the studio trying to become, or are they looking to just establish themselves as a particular entity. Bringing in the special sauce, if you will, or it's like building a cake in that sense, where it's trying to find the right mix, not only talent, but personalities. You might have, you know, a CASO that nobody likes, so you don't want to necessarily put them in a role that's going to cause a lot of damage, but you may want them in the studio in a specific place in order to excel or accelerate the process. So that's always been fun. It's trying to find the right result we have.
I'm going to ask a quick question here. How many of you guys are fresh out of school? Just stick your hands way up. Don't be shy. How many of you are still in school? Okay, so newbies, we're going to call you guys. There's a good, like, 2/3 of the room. The rest of you, mid-career, interested, what's the point? What are you doing here? All right, who's going to jump on? Oh, all right, so just figuring some stuff out. Okay. So do your homework. Because I think what a lot of this is right now on this question. Do your homework. It's very easy to do your homework about the companies that are out there. It's very easy to find the larger, more obvious hires, job posted up there regularly all over the place. But there are a lot of also smaller companies. I run a job board, and so I get stuff sent to me on a regular basis at CanadianAnimationResources.ca. But just jumping on LinkedIn and hitting the jobs section and pressing animation, you see a lot of other companies you wouldn't have thought of. So do your homework that way first to see who's hiring and what they're hiring, and then do your homework on the company itself. It's very easy to do that now. Now you're going to get that kind of like social media version of that company for sure. You're going to see what they present. But it's very easy also to find people online who you might know not well, who have worked with them or who know people. Don't hesitate to reach out to somebody who maybe graduated a year ahead of you, and they might remember you or they might not. The chances are they're going to be very happy to talk to you about it. This is where, like, just get over being shy about these things, get over how you think you should or shouldn't do, and just ask the questions. Because a lot of it comes down to, I mean, we're in a nice position right now for you guys, in that the industry is very robust. For those of us who've been at it as long as some of us have, we've seen tremendous downturns, we've seen industries go away a couple times. We're really not running that risk these days, and you guys have more power than you think. So find the studio where you're a good fit, okay? I mean, it doesn't mean you should be walking in every day, you know, to every job interview thinking you're hot shit and you can dictate what's going on, because then that word will get around and you're not going to get hired at all. Still follow all the things we just said in terms of be polite, be clean, all that kind of stuff. But look around and ask people. Just ask people. It's an amazing tool. Because the worst thing you want to be is in a situation where you're miserable and you could have avoided it. You guys have the power right now to kind of even support the companies that you want to support by going and working for them. I'm not going to go further with that.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody at the end of the panel? I saw a microphone coming up.
Yeah, I really like what Mike just said. Like, lead with research and do a targeted approach. You know, even going back to what was just asked, whether like how we weight skills and culture, I find that personally I skew a little more into culture just because I'm more of an HR guy, and like I'm concerned with keeping talent. And I always say that like finding a job is very much like dating. Like you want to build a sustainable long-term relationship. So you really want to lead with research, find a targeted approach in terms of like the companies you really want to talk to, and just start conversations. You know, like approach people like me, approach all the recruiters, and just see like what they're like, because they'll usually reflect the culture of the studio. And if you get along with that, you know, like it's probably a good sign. So.
Great. I'm going to take a sort of almost contrary position to what we're talking about, in the sense that considering a good chunk of the job fair today and people sitting in this audience probably are just getting out of school or recent graduates who technically have to move from a graduate situation to professional career experience. So on their resume, on their demo reels, on their LinkedIn profile, any professional experience probably pushes them forward into the job market more than their scholastic achievements. So I really appreciate the conversation, but I'm curious where someone just needs to move the stick forward in their career, or should they be very flexible, very adaptable, and take any work, including a freelance assignment, just to get that under their belt? Or should they, as we were talking about, look at very strategically where they're going to be and what kind of work they're going to work on? I'll put that to the panel. Keep the mic away from Mike, he's angry. Let him breathe. Alicia, please.
Sure. I would say definitely make it targeted, but I think it's really good to see passion projects, side hustles. It just shows like how passionate you are about it. So if you like a lot of people do want to get into VR, but they don't know how to start in it because they haven't done anything in VR professionally, because it's just still pretty cutting edge, especially in Toronto. But there's people who do it for fun. There's people who you know, look at job descriptions and then you see what's needed in that role, and then, you know, collaborate with friends. I know in different university and college courses, you do project work and things like that. So I think, yeah, the more that you see visually, I would say, versus like, you know, written out like different things that you've done, especially as visual people, which myself, and then also most of the hiring managers are. They want to see physical, well, not so physical, but digitally, what you can do and what you're passionate about. And I think the more that you do on the side too, it kind of shows that. Like you really took the time to, do this for fun. You must, really love it. It's not just a job for you. So the more of that, the better, I think.
Curious to disagree with you. I'm not going to make a scene.
Go ahead.
Be working. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, and to speak the truth, I mean, a lot of you guys are coming out of school, whatever it is, very mediocre. And that's okay. Like, that's not a bad thing. You got to look around, take a job, be working, but don't stop looking. Get those freelance gigs. Yes, build up your resume, build up your LinkedIn profile, all of that. It's easier to find a job when you've got one. That's a position of strength. So be looking, and I mean, and it is. That thing is a two-part. If you are taking on side projects and you're doing some freelancing, just do it. That's the hustle. You've got to hustle. This is a tough industry, and I'm not saying it's a tough industry in a way that's like should be making you feel despondent about it, but it's very competitive, and there are a lot of you graduating, and there are only so many seats. But there's also a lot more seats now than there used to be. So yes, you may want to be an art director, but go and take that animation job and get into the company that you think you like. Because you like what they do, and they might recognize that in you. You're always going to be hustling for that next thing, for that next advance. Get yourself in the door, but don't be afraid to quit. Also, that's the other side of this. Get yourself in the door, but if you don't like the way something's going, if you don't like the way you're being treated, if it's not, keep looking. Just because you get that first job doesn't mean you're set. Okay? Be looking, and this is where we talk about culture fit, all that kind of thing. Don't just leave it upon us to decide if you're a good fit or not. You guys have to take charge of your own careers. Look around for where you know people are happy, where your friends are, that kind of thing. Sure, make them your goals. You may not get it the first time out of the gates, but always have those goals. But yes, have a job, get a job, take a job, build up the resume.
Great, thank you. Jefferson, I want to pose a question to you. And in the, was it 400 years you've been at Mercury? I think we're friends, we could say. So the curiosity is, the roles that you've had there, because it's been more than 10 years, how have, give us sort of like the top 4 or 5 titles. Were you an editor, a creative guy, or an animator, and now you're VP of Operations? What does that look like?
Started as an animator, did compositing effects, did tech, was a technical director. I did tech for, like I was an IT guy, but I was speaking into the productions and informing the teams what tools we were going to use, what technology we were going to use to do that. Went into a technical direct role, and this was not my plan. It was actually my colleagues that actually put me into the head of studio role, which then turned into the VP of studio operations. So
perfect. Okay, so because from my own personal recruiting experience, dealing with students coming out of schools, I wrestle sometimes with the individual who says, "I really want to be a modeler," and the demo reel comes in. And the head of modeling looks at it and says, "Not quite ready yet." But that demo reel goes down to head of animation, and the head of animation goes, "You know what, this student's animation is way better than their modeling." So we have this critical crisis where almost, someone wants to be a programmer, but they really should be over here. And so at some studios we've wrestled with this, because we go back to the student and we say, "We can't make you a modeler right now, but we can make you an animator. Would you take the job, yes or no?" And I'll put it back to the panel. It's not about me. So, have you had instances like that where you're interviewing somebody for a position, but you really think after interviewing them, they are better suited to another role in the studio, and how would you approach that with them?
Just recently, so like my job, I oversee a lot of the hiring and a lot of the movement of staff in the studio. And so recently, like a lot of times when we're hiring people, we're hiring them for animation. And a lot of times, I had one of the schools that reached out to me. They were like, check this girl out. She's really, really, really talented. She was an amazing character designer. I did not have a character design position. So I was like, I approached her. I said, do you want to try animation? And we'll see how that goes. And so she came in. She hustled. She treated it like a job. She worked really hard. She was doing really well. Character design position opened up, and I put her in front of the head person in character design. She did a quick test, And then they came back and they were like, we want her, right? And the thing is animation, her doing animation in our studio actually makes her a better character designer. Because now she's not going to draw something that's going to make one of my animators cry. Right? So there's so many things, like if you don't get your dream job out of the gates, understand that so many other positions feed into each other.
When you don't get your dream job. Whoa, when you don't get your dream job out of the gates, you won't. That's okay.
That really goes back to what I was saying earlier, like really own in on what you're good at and what you want to do. Like I was saying, like I've seen so many generalist applications, and when I used to do a lot of real reviews, like they're just trying to show me everything, and which is cool, but like have a bit of a strategy behind what you want to do. So like you may be great at a lot of things, but show me one reel that's dedicated to animation, show me one reel that's dedicated to modeling, and then we could really assess like what the best fit would be for you. Yeah, just really own in on what you want to do.
So would it be fair to sort of have one of the things we've discussed in the past is sort of rehearsing the interview so that when you're in front of a studio, it's not the first time you're going through these questions. Just like an actor having to do their lines over and over and over again. Role-playing with a buddy or two or an instructor at school and actually do an interview class and work through it. I've been at some institutions where we would actually film it so that you could then see yourself back. Because the last thing you want to be doing is thinking of an answer cold in front of an interview. So
I usually try to show up and think of myself as a 7th level monk.
somebody played a lot of role-playing games.
Yeah,
Different
we're talking about role-playing.
So going back to the comment, which is, know exactly what your passion is, but know that it might not be exactly what you're going to land. Would it be helpful to say, look, here's what I really love, but I'm also, or I've been told by other students or my peers, I'm pretty good at this and this. So you go in with kind of like your top hit and your second and third supporting.
Just go in with transparency. That's where I think. Go in with transparency. You know the realities. You saw the job post that you applied for, right? So that's what you're there to talk about. But there may be something that you like better or want to do, and you talk about that stuff. And you feel, again, just be yourself. If you don't know the answer to a question, just say, shit, I really don't know the answer. If the person swears at you first, then go ahead and swear, it's fine. But just assess that. And there's entry-level jobs, and you want to talk about where you want to go. Now, I can read it, so I'm going to stop right in a second. Don't.
That's good, Mike. I'm going to turn it over to the audience. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask the panel? Anybody right down here in front?
I remember someone who was just finished high school. Would you ever take someone thinking about in a sports franchise that may take a couple from high school, a couple people from university, play in the minor somewhere else? Like, what are the chances? Is it always you have to go through the animation program, or have you ever been surprised by someone who made it out?
So an internship or jumping the traditional college route?
I think it really depends on what it is you're looking to do. I mean, I'm kind of living proof where I did none of this, and I've somehow survived this industry. I have no idea what I'm doing at all, but yet I keep doing it. But it's a different time now, and there's a lot of jobs out there that you need to have very specific skills. And the school, 3, 4, 2 years, whatever it is. And one of the things that you really want to be able to walk away from is know that you know nothing. You just got enough information in the last 4 years to barely understand what it is you're going to have to do next. That isn't necessarily something to scare anybody away from, but accepting that and understanding that and seeing what else is out there and how you can be open-minded about it. And if you come across that way to the person that you're interviewing with, but being open-minded about the options, there's always opportunity. And innate talent is innate talent. And if production is slightly different than design, it's a slightly different kind of skill set that you're looking for as a production coordinator or an assistant correct word here, but you know, it's critical thinking, that sort of stuff, and it's a great way to get in the ground floor. And if you are still drawing constantly on the side, when you're in a place where there's opportunity, keep your eyes open for those opportunities, like Mike said.
Robert, I just want to dial in a bit on that question though, because with the level of skills in 3 or 4 years of college, with the software that people, sort of like that baseline, need to sort of understand to survive, you know, and some people are massively talented. They almost don't need the college education because they're just, you know, they're shooting way ahead of everybody. But there's still something to be said for going through team skill, everything else. Mike, you want to talk about this?
If you want it to be zeros and ones, think of it this way. You can try, but you're competing with everybody else out there who has that degree, has those skills, and then the ones who graduated 6 years ago and 10 years ago and all those kinds of things. Get as much training as possible. I am also somebody, I got kicked out of 2 universities and I fell into this at a time when you could fall into it. And then I moved into producing and management because I don't have the digital skills to stay drawing. So I'm limited in that way. But you're competing with everybody who's got a 4-year degree, a 3-year certificate, whatever it might be. So you better be amazing. I know you think he's a genius, okay? But at one time, everybody who draws in this room moves into that next place where they're the shittiest drawer in the room. And it's a really good experience. It's an amazing experience. And then the process of going through all that training is an amazing learning experience as well. You learn to work in teams. You learn, like there's so much more beyond just that piece of paper. So I would be incredibly irresponsible to tell you that you can do it the other way. I'm not saying you can't. You might be the genius that she thinks you are. In which case, get your shit out there and apply.
Yeah. So
and when you don't get the job, be realistic about it and don't feel like a piece of crap. But just keep going, like take the opportunities where they are.
Yeah, please.
So, like you guys, like I didn't go to animation school, and my first gig was in a studio in San Francisco. But as talented as I was, I always felt like I was missing a piece of the puzzle. It took years before I felt confident that I knew what I needed to know. And that's what school does.
So, I just want to jump in for a sec. Tim Burton, who we all know really well, worked in the Disney machine for years. Tim Burton didn't belong at Disney. It's just obvious. So, but he was that bright, uniquely different, creative, wild creature. You know, there's an old line about shaving down a Sasquatch, right? You find Bigfoot in the jungle, you bring him in, you shave him down, nobody knows it's Bigfoot. That's kind of Tim Burton, right? No one knew he was Tim Burton. But at Disney, he made 1 million connections. He made at a senior level, at an executive level, at a creative level, and some of those people said, oh my God, if that crazy guy ever leaves here, I'm following him. So it's that whole environment of making more connections than you are. And the other thing you'll find is, as brilliantly talented as you are, when you enter this creative environment, everyone else is brilliantly creative as well, right? I remember getting the art award in high school and thinking I was the stuff, and I won some contests, I thought I was the stuff, and when I got into art school, everyone else in art school was the same kid. They also were A-league, art editors in their local areas. So what had been a cakewalk in high school, I all of a sudden had to really kick it in gear because I'm surrounded by those folks who also drew their whole 4 or 5 years of high school. So it's a leveling contest, but there's something to be said for both, to your question, both streams. Alicia, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I was also just going to say about recruiters, like don't be afraid to do so. Like we get so many applications, so many people are talented, and like for one role we might get like 300, 500 applications. It's a lot to go through. So for me, people that submit their application reach out to me on LinkedIn personally. It's not always just about that. Of course, you have to have the skills and you have to have a passion and everything else that we've talked about today, but don't be afraid to bug us. I get a lot of emails that are like, I don't want to bug you, and like, bug me. I always say that, like, I want to know who you are, and then again, it's showing me that you took that initiative. So I would say don't be afraid to do that.
Where do you guys way long time ago, you would just
In the old days, you would just like even just go to a studio and talk to them and find out what you can. And everyone's always, I'll sweep the floors. How do you guys deal with that?
I love that. Like, it's kind of old school now, but I have people that show up just like at E1 reception. I'm like, wow, good for you. Like, you submitted your application, you went on LinkedIn, messaged me, got lost in pub, but like you're one of 5 people, let's say, out of like 300 that applied, that took the initiative to walk here just to meet anybody that works here. And I'm like, that shows something. Like,
I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know, like, if I'm in the middle of something, I'm not always the person that can meet with them, but there's always one person at SL that will. Like, whether it's myself or like a producer, or like if it's a hiring manager that is dying to fill that role because I have like 30 other roles, you know, and as a hiring, like that's your, you know, you want that person to see more than anyone. They're always willing to meet. So yeah, I don't mind it, I don't think.
Great. Got another question from the audience.
Hello, I would like to ask about virtual animation. Alicia mentioned twice in this conversation that virtual animation. It just came out one program about months ago. Another program will be coming out in July. I'm in VR. I work in virtual applications for 2 years. Paint and draw and make sculptures. And I look all over for virtual animation. My question is, are you planning, any studios are planning to go into virtual animation? I know one more VR animator in Toronto.
VR? VR related? Not talking drawing? Drawing in VR. Drawing in VR.
Yeah.
Right, and no one's really, like, you got VR and then you got augmented reality, right? And both of them have really neat applications, but it's to be able to tell, like, and like again, telling the story. I think everyone's been trying to figure this process out, because the technology is really cool, but it does no good if you can't tell that story and get what you want to get across to the viewer, right? Yeah, I think, like, I know Disney's been looking at that stuff. You know, we looked at it. You know, 2 years ago there was a big talk in New York with Glenn. He was talking about, like, it was the new form of storytelling. But everyone is sort of, you know, we've been talking about it, and technology's been advancing, but no one has really figured out what that model is. Everyone's sort of dabbing and trying. We've seen even our own shows, the same assets be taken and used in a augmented reality environment. You know, trying to use the same assets that was used for a television production in an augmented reality sort of, you know, VR on rails. So
It's not part of most companies' business model yet. If you like really look at interactive companies and agencies that way, creative agencies who are dabbling in it and actually are getting like that 1 gig. You know, like right now it's a project-to-project thing, not a company-to-company thing. So yeah, I mean, even Smiley Guy, where I was a couple years ago, was just very traditionally Flash Studio. Their interactive department, there was somebody there who was passionate about VR, and so they're exploring it. But it's very much just a side hustle right now. They're a small company, so smaller companies don't often have the resources to explore these things the same way. But a lot of the more cutting-edge interactive companies get approached to do something, and then they've got to go looking for people. So that's more how it works right now, but it's not really part of most people's business model at this stage.
Alicia, can you chime in? Because I mean, you are in a VR studio, so I'm just curious if you can highlight a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so our core focus is VR. So at E1, we're seen as we're the VR division essentially. So we have an opposite problem where everything that we do has to do with VR. So all of our animators are working in VR, all of our developers are working in VR. So I think the struggle is finding those people that have VR experience where most people don't have that experience. So we look at those transferable skills. Are you a character animator, environmental? We'll still look for those same things and give you the opportunity to work in VR for the first time. That happens a lot. So it's just looking at those transferable skills that can move into VR. Are you a good storyteller? A lot of what we're doing right now is VR games, and a lot of it is VR experiences. Like we're working on it's a short story by Philip K. Dick called The Great Sea, and we're turning that into an immersive a storytelling experience. So we looked at more so your thought process, ability to problem solve, and passion for VR, and to really be able to hone in your skills and learn that. But in terms of development and design animation, we look for similar people at studios that don't have VR. But again, if you do things on the side, passion projects, side hustles that have to do with VR. So a lot of my question is, what do you love about VR? Why do you want to get into it? Things like that, if that helps answer that.
Okay, just as far as timing, we've got to wrap. There's another studio coming in, and there's going to be a bunch of, if you want to talk to specific studios, a good chunk of the programming for the next few hours is each studio coming up for 10 or 15 minutes, talking about them. So if you're having a hard time downstairs getting airtime because of the lineups, it might be a good adjunct to your day to stick up here or look at the schedule that's on the brochure and figure out who you might want to listen to related to the points we talked about, culture, shows, those studios, what they're looking for. You might be able to get beyond their LinkedIn or their website a little bit more insight and hopefully ask some of the questions of some of those people. Thank you all for being here this morning, and thank you to the panel for all the stimulating conversation.